Welcome to the Racing Nuggets podcast. I am PJ Noodleman, joined by my co-host, Dan Plan. Hello, Dan.
Hello.
I am so excited for today because this is one of the people that came to my mind immediately that I wanted to have on as a guest. And admittedly, I sort of strong-armed him into doing this. Please welcome Steve Holzhausen. Hey there, Steve.
Good morning.
Thank you
Dan.
so much.
Hey, Steve.
Thanks for agreeing to do this, even though I did kind of strong arm you into it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to follow Stormy and Dave Trout. You know, those guys know how to talk.
Well, Dave actually told a story that made me think of you. And that was what they were talking about the trailer wheel coming off and passing them.
Yeah.
And you actually had something bigger than a trailer wheel come off once and pass you guys going somewhere, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Would
Probably
you like
more
to share that story?
More than once. Yeah, we raced at the Dells one night, Saturday night, and we had to go up to the Minnesota State Fair after the races. So we loaded up and headed on towards the Minnesota Fair. And I don't know, we were up past Eau Claire or something like that. And all of a sudden, Jay Sauter pulls up alongside, and this is at night. He pulls up alongside of us and is waving at us, rolled window down. Hey, your race car just unloaded itself. So we had to turn around at wherever we could get to get off the interstate and then head back. Well, here, unload. We had ramps on the back, and we just bungee cord them up to the back bumper of the race car. They just were on hinges. So when the chain come unhooked, it just unloaded itself and turned left, shot across the median, went across in front of some people. Well, they were still sitting there when we got there. And I don't think the lady could even talk. You know, this car came shooting across with a number on it right in front of us. Well, anyway, I think the cop that showed up was from our area here around Bangor or La Crosse, and I think maybe he felt bad for us. He kind of let us go. We were able to get it out of the fence on the other side and get it loaded up and back to the Minnesota Fair. We had to dig a bunch of mud out of the around the crankshaft and stuff up in the front pulleys and whatever, but yeah.
You guys have had a lot of adventures and misadventures in your days. But I have this picture. I think this was at Kakana.
Yep.
Of you and Tobe. I don't remember what race that was, but you might know. Y'all won, it looks like.
I think that was one of the red, white, and blue races, if I remember right.
Are you drinking a red, white, and blue beer?
Kind of looks like it.
It kind of does.
Toby
it kind of
was
does
too.
Yeah, he used to drink. That's for
I
sure.
pick on him about that. Yeah.
Used to drink, not anymore. But that actually kind of led to some of those misadventures, if memory serves.
It was a good plan for him to quit. Yeah.
I know he told me one too. You guys actually hit a deer once, and with an open car trailer.
Yeah.
That can get pretty hairy.
Literally. He was
Literally.
driving. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
What was he going to do? He just straddled it and let it roll underneath the trailer and throw pieces of meat and whatever else all over the inside of the trailer. That was coming home from Wausau on a Thursday night, and we had to go to Madison the next night. So when we got back home and to the shop 3-4 o'clock in the morning, we were under the car pressure washing it, and he didn't get it all because the next night when it warmed up, it was not good.
It had to be brutal to drive.
The picture from Kakana that looks to be like the late 80s. I guess, yeah. I remember that you won, I think it was 89, you won at Elko on the Artco tour. That'd be, I think it was 89. Looked like 89 was a pretty good year for you on the Artco series.
Probably. That car we had working really good then. And I believe we even went south with it during the winter. We went down to Lanier with that car, Lanier, Georgia. They had a 12,000 to win 300 lap race, and a good buddy of mine talked us into coming down there, Scott Sutherland, and we ended up running second at the end of the race, right on the leader's back bumper. Finished second in that race. So, I mean, that car was a good car at that point.
Yeah. And and then Skyler won at Elko too, right? With the tour. So both of you won at the same track out of state, right?
Yeah. He won a actual 250 lap race at Elko, a nice race to win. Yep. We love.
Was it like a brick of silver or something or gold?
It's kind of like racing at the Dells, only maybe even better. Elko is, you can run too wide there real easy, and it's got both lanes working, and it's kind of fit us.
Yep.
You guys won like multiple championships. I mean, you raced back in the day when you guys would race like 5 nights a week. And there were a couple of years there, I think, that you had more than one championship at different tracks.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was 84. We ended up winning the track championship at Wausau, and I think we were second at La Crosse, second at Madison, second at the Dells. Had a pretty good overall season that year. Then I went and got married. That was better yet. That's not funny.
Oh shoot. Actually, Bob Schneider Jr. sent me a picture of you and Sherry back in the day. I sent it to Sherry. I don't know if she shared it with you or not.
Not yet.
Oh, I'll share it with you later then.
Gee.
But
Yeah,
it was a pretty cute picture, and I think it was from the 80s. So late 80s.
Was that with Toby?
Toby's in the background. Yeah, it's almost a butt shot of Tobe.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I did. He sent that to me too, that picture.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Good
I showed
times.
it to Skylar, and Skylar said, well, Toby still looks the same, but he says, Mom looks like she was about 14. And I said, well, I used to get that a lot. Everybody accused me of robbing the cradle.
Oh my. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of your favorite tracks, maybe, or favorite cars, either or. Would love to hear kind of, if you have a car that you just loved or a track that you really loved running at, we'd love to hear some stories from you.
Oh, man. We always liked Bach cars because we got hooked up with Jimmy Bach when he was still building cars back in the day. But then again, Toby had some Rander cars that were just awesome to drive. I guess those were coming out of Race Lake Motorsports. Just killer cars. And he's still doing it today. I mean, he's one of the best. As far as cars go, those two brands were probably my favorite. Tracks, I think the Dells was probably my favorite racetrack, but I really liked them all. It didn't really matter.
I have one of my favorite. I'm gonna bring pictures with too. This is the one I remember first seeing. I know you drove before that, but that car there, I want to say is it fair to say that was the first competitive front running car you had, was the Fairmont?
Yeah, most definitely. We got to a point where we were, building our own cars and building my own engines and everything, and having a lot of failures with those. And when we bought that chassis from Steve Burgess, it was trickle built, and he had the body off of it. It was a Granada, we bought that, and then I bought an engine from Billy Ois. It was a big block, and we put that all together with that body on it. And we put it together in 78, and I won my very first feature at the Dells with that car in 78. And then by 1980, we won the track championship at the Dells with that same setup. We had that car working really good.
I did notice in the picture it says 440 cubic inches on the hood. So like I said, it was a big. When did you switch from big block to small block back then?
Switching back, we sold that car in 80, at the end of 80, and bought a car from Jim Sauter, or one of his car owners, and that was a Howe car. And we had a small block in there for a short time, and we didn't have very good luck with that. And at the end of that year, we got rid of it and went back to, and that's when we got hooked up with Jimmy Bach in 82. And we had a big block in that car to start with from Wagner. And I don't know if by 83, maybe we were putting a small block in it then from Carl, and that was the end of the big blocks.
Cool.
I know Toby has attributed the Bach family to a lot of his knowledge that he learned and grew from. What was that like running with Jimmy Bach and his whole racing family?
Oh boy, where do you want to start? Those guys really knew what they were doing back then. That was great to get hooked up with him, but it was always an experience going up there and hanging out with Jimbo. We learned a lot from that too. It was hard to get out of there sober. And the stories he told and everything, it was pretty cool. But they really knew what they were doing when they were building them cars, and that was a plus for us.
I've read the Father Gruba books on the Central Wisconsin circuit, and one of my favorite quotes in there is from Jim Bach when it says, I don't think it's beer that makes me feel sick. I think it's sleep, because I feel fine when I go to sleep.
Yep, that's Jimbo.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That is funny. Steve, what's the best piece of advice you ever got as you were kind of coming up through the ranks? Because you were racing against Jimmy Bach and Dick Trickle and Tom Reffner, all those guys. So what was the best piece of advice you ever got from any of them?
Oh boy. I know I used to hang around and talk to all of them. I used to walk up and down pit road and sit and talk with Tom Reffner and Joe Shearer, and hang around Trickle at the bar afterwards, and of course Jimbo. And you just get a little bit here and there from all of them. I don't know if I can say I got the best from anybody, but I think maybe talking with Marv Marzufka one day, it's, what do you think I need for a right front spring in the right front here in my car? And I think that was at Fairmont at the time. And he looked at me and he goes, well, you want one the coil's about the same size as my thumb. He says that would be the best for up there. So that was probably my best information I got.
Good stuff.
He wouldn't straight out tell me 500 or 800, about the size of my thumb.
You could probably write a book just on all of your racing adventures that you've had. I mean, you actually got to race against so many of the people that we all call legends nowadays. And you yourself, in a lot of people's books, mine included, I consider to be a living legend as well.
Well, living for sure, but I don't know about a legend. Yeah. Was pretty lucky to grow up and race when we did. I wouldn't change that for anything. It would have been better even if I could have got started sooner, I think. things were a lot cooler back then, building your own cars and whatnot. And the guys we got to grow up and race with were the best. You know, we got to race all over Canada and all over the United States. We got to race with a lot of really good drivers from all over. So it was pretty awesome.
How did you actually end up getting started in auto racing? Because I know you did snowmobile racing first.
Well, that's how Toby and I got hooked up. I got hooked up and we were racing snowmobiles together, and I think I was driving his. And pretty soon he was in the shop helping on the race car and stuff. But my dad actually raced and had race cars when I was growing up, so I was in the shop helping with him. And I guess when I was old enough to sit behind the wheel, when he let me start driving. So we had an old Chevy wrecker pickup. I think it was like a half ton with a little wrecker on the back. We had a body shop behind La Crosse Speedway, and I'd hook the car up and drive that wrecker to the racetrack and unload it. And I didn't even have my driver's license yet. Didn't have to go far down the road, but they all thought that was pretty funny.
When you're talking about the car falling off the trailer on the way to the fair, so back in those days, would you race the Dells Saturday night and then race at State Fair Sunday and Monday?
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep. I did that quite a bit. When my son was born, we kind of got messed up there. We were racing at the Dells that night, and I got the call that the wife went into the hospital. I can't remember. Something was going wrong. Skylar was born like 3 months premature. And I had a car lined up to race at the Minnesota Fair that weekend, but they had this, I think they stopped the race so I could get out of the car and get out of the pits and head for La Crosse.
Oh.
Well, I didn't get to run the Minnesota Fair race that weekend. It was an ASA race, and I was driving for a guy out of Green Bay, and I called up Richie Bickle and had him fill in for me, and he kind of took over that ride after that. But I had other things to worry about at that time anyway. So it was a 2-pound, 12-ouncer.
Skylar was?
Got an early start.
Yep.
Yeah, that is.
Turned out all right, I think.
Yeah, he did.
On the most part, I mean.
Well, and that was back in the days when a premature birth, I mean, they didn't have half of the technology for taking care of premature kids that they do now. That had to have been pretty scary.
That was pretty scary. They asked me if I wanted to go in the room with Sherry when they were having it. Of course, it was a C-section, and it's like, not really. We hadn't even started to go into classes yet or anything. Like, oh boy, no thanks. You guys take care of it.
Wow. How did he just fit like in the palm of your hand then? If he was just like
About
2 pounds?
Yeah, you could see right through his skin. You could see his intestines and stuff. It was, and they never gave him a blood transfusion. He was like one of the first. The doctor that Sherry had there had just come up with a thing where they put him under lights that would be like out in the sun, which takes the impurities out of your blood and whatnot. So they did that with him, and like I say, turned out all right.
Yeah, those are the Billy lights. I remember hearing about those when we were raising money for Children's Miracle Network. So that was some of the very first technology. So that's pretty cool that Skylar was able to be a part of that.
Getting a suntan, yep.
I had the exact opposite with our son. He ended up staying in the womb too long. And I guess, so then he had to be in intensive care because I believe it's called meconium, and that's where they get poop in their lungs. So everybody said he was just like me when he was born, full of shit.
Yeah. Oh boy.
I'll be here all day. too short.
I have no words. So, Steve, you just recently retired of sorts, and I know you just had some surgery on your ankle again. This is the ankle that you injured at the Dells when you had the throttle stick. You've already had what, 2 surgeries on that ankle?
Yeah. Of course, I was a one-footed driver and never really needed my left foot for anything but run the clutch. So once you got in high gear, I'd put it over to the side of the cockpit, and I had a like a fake pedal over there I could push against, would help hold me in the seat and gave it something to do. Well, when the throttle stuck and they went in the wall, that leg took a lot of shot, broke the leg and messed up the ankle. The doctor, when he fixed it the first time, he tried to put it all back together and was hoping that everything would grow back and be good. Whatever holds the bones together, I can't remember what it's all called and everything, but that didn't work. So then we had to go in for a second operation, and they fused the 2 bones going down to the ankle from the knee down and put some hardware in there and whatnot and worked on the ankle. Well, that's been a long time ago, and it's been bothering me. And they said between arthritis and what I went through there, the actual joint went bad. And the longer I could wait, the better to put this replacement ankle in, because they're only good for, well, 10 years back in the day. And now they're saying 10 to 15. So, and it was getting to the point where I just had to get it done. So we went and had her done. Retired one day and was in the hospital the next.
So you are basically laid up then while that heals for how long?
I was in the hospital yesterday after 1 week, and they unwrapped it and looked at the incisions, and they took out all the old hardware and put in this new joint. And he said everything looked good to him, and they wrapped it back up and sent me home. And they originally said 3 weeks before I could start walking on it, but he said because of the screws and plates they took out, they want to wait an extra week because that could affect the bones, maybe weaken them. And so I got 3 more weeks to go before I can actually start walking on it.
Dang.
And from there, I don't know how it's going to go really, but as bad as he said it was, he said, I don't know how you could even walk on it. So I said, well, this ought to be just great then. Should be a good improvement.
I hope so. I mean, you've been through kind of hell with that injury really for quite some time.
Yeah, I switched what I was doing for work. I thought maybe if I quit working on cars, standing on cement all day, but then I took a township job, and then you're walking through ditches, cutting trees, and still on cement in the shop, fixing the equipment. And maybe that wasn't the best move, but it was kind of cool to get out and, be able to handle a big machinery and do that stuff. But figured it was time to get away from that. I still probably will work, but exactly what yet, I don't know. I got some hot rods and stuff I want to finish up, and some granddaughters that I like to hang around and take them fishing and have a little fun. I got a scooter here. You guys see this? My wife said, you don't look like you're real comfortable on them crutches. I said, not as much as I used to be when I was younger, but she said, you mind if I go on Facebook and see if I can find you one of those knee scooters? And I'm like, not really, but whatever, go ahead. So she put a post out there looking for a scooter for me. And 5 minutes later, Roger Burrows speaks up to her. Yeah, my buddy's got one. So last night he brought it over. It actually works pretty good. Gets me around the house a little better than I set the crutches down so I can make my eggs or something. Then they fall over and you got to pick them up. Well, this thing stands by itself. I'll show you it here. It's got a little basket on the front and everything. Can you see
that
there?
is nifty. Yeah. So then you just rest your knee.
got a basket on the front. You keep stuff in there, knock my basket off now.
Funny.
Yeah, works pretty good.
Well, that's actually probably better with all the ice out there right now too. So that's a
Yeah,
plus.
well, yeah. Getting off the deck and across the sidewalk to the garage yesterday morning with all the snow and ice was kind of a scary situation, but we made it.
And then you got your own antifreeze there, as you showed us in the basket. So
I'm off
that's
pain
nice.
meds, so that's my little go to bed stuff there.
I love it. I love it. So you mentioned your granddaughters. How are you going to feel if any of your granddaughters decide they want to pursue racing?
Well, like I told my daughter, girls are for cheerleading. I guess that's probably what I'll tell them. But
oh my goodness. I'm so glad we're on Zoom so I can't throat punch you right now.
well, I'm sure a few of you would. I think I told Emily Sue Steck that once, and I wasn't sure if she hated me ever since or not. But she was a good racer. I'm just kidding, of course.
I know. So retirement then, and you mentioned that you might still be doing some stuff. Any driver coaching in the future for you?
You never know. I mean, I might go out and sit with Toby once in a while and coach him, hand him bolts.
Yeah, as long as they're not hollow bolts. Yeah, that would be great.
Oh yeah.
I did see a good comment from you when the pictures started showing up of the restored Fairmont, and somebody asked you if you were going to run it in the vintage race, and you said you weren't old enough.
Well, not yet.
Before
I forget, congratulations to Dan there about his upcoming retirement. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm hanging out with retired guys now.
Awesome. Wow. Yeah, you better be careful.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that Fairmont. Roger Burrows did a really great restoration of that car. That was pretty cool. That was a surprise to you too, wasn't it?
It was. He kept it a secret to me, and he was really getting nervous. He keeps telling me that all the time, because some people knew about it, and because they were sending him pictures and wanted to get it right. Even my wife. I think my son knew about it, but nobody ever said anything to me. So yeah, it was a surprise. He did a really awesome job on it too. And it's a car that I used to race for. The chassis used underneath was one that he home built, and I raced for him. And we actually won quite a few features with that car. It was a good car.
That is pretty cool.
He's a pretty good friend.
Do you think you ever might race that car?
I don't know. He'd have to strong arm me.
Well, I think I've proven we can already do that.
Yeah.
I mean, here you are doing a podcast that you said you didn't want to do.
And I talked him into putting power steering in it because he was talking about having me run it at the fest last year. Against another retired driver, and the way things went, we just didn't do it. But I said, I can't do it with the manual steering anymore. I said, it'd really be nice if it had, well, you put power steering on it then, and got us. So it's really all set to go.
I got a picture handy on my phone of that one too.
Nice.
He did an awesome job.
Yeah. He really did. And the fact that he kept it a surprise from you, I think made it even more special.
Yeah, he's a putz. I always call him, he knew he was going to get it. That's why I call him a putz, because when I'd race his car back in the day, he would lay under that car and polish the frame rails. He'd take like Scotch-Brite and polish the brake lines. And I mean, it always looked really nice, man, and actually ran good too. But he's a putz. He'll appreciate that when he sees it.
You really do have a lot of great friends that you have met over the course of your career. And I think you are really well respected and revered among your peers. You're a really great guy, and I appreciate you agreeing to come on the podcast, even though I had to kind of strong arm you.
Yeah, it was, like I say, it was hard to follow Stormy and Dave Trout. Them guys are good at telling stories and talking, and didn't know if I really wanted to follow them, but here we are.
I think you did great, and you're the first one to actually show your own antifreeze on the podcast. So,
oh yeah, well,
that was nice.
What scooters are for.
I keep trying to talk Jacqueline into doing one of these at night so we can all sit around and have Coors Light while recording one, but
I think
we haven't gotten there yet.
There. The stories would be better.
I'm thinking we probably will do that eventually. We'll just call it Cooler Conversations and invite everybody over to the race shop some night with a
maybe
unlimited cooler.
We can
get Dan there. What's that?
I was gonna say we could do a daily one at Oktoberfest in the Dolphin.
Oh boy, then you would have Dave Trout and Storm and Dan Fredrickson and all the good talkers there.
We'll have you there too, Steve, because you're retired, right?
Retired.
Retired.
Yes, well, I am.
Well, I'm glad that you are. I hope the healing continues in the right direction. It sounds like you got your pain management under control.
Yep.
Especially with that bottle that was in the basket.
Little Tylenol here and there, and I'm good. I'm happy. Life is good. I got
glad.
A super wife, great kids, grandkids. We're all good.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for agreeing to join us on this podcast.
Good to talk to you guys, Steve.
You bet. Same here.